Ash. We are a nonprofit that helps out victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, and I'll talk about resources that they range in. But one of the things I love about my job, because I get to go into the community and just talk about what a healthy relationship should look like, whether that's like healthy communication, or warning signs, kind of like the whole flow stuff. Um, yeah, just hop in and we can just like have a discussion, which is sometimes more fun than just like a presentation. So one thing is forbidden. Wow. So we said that you're engaged. Congratulations. When it comes to like any type of relationship, because this also like definitely applies to romantic relationships, but we can definitely like talk about family relationships, like friendships, coworkers, like everything that we'll talk about applies to all of those kind of things. I know, like for me, sometimes family relationships can be hard. Love them, go lot with stuff that comes with family. But what kind of things do you tend to look for when it comes to a relationship?
One for me is just emotional safety. Like I feel like I can come to someone with my heart and my feelings, and it, those spaces are safe and respectful and kind and assertive, boundaries. So emotional safety is really important.
Yeah, that one's a huge one, for me too. And like I feel like that's also a hard one to learn what that means, like just like broadly, but also on a personal level. Like I know that certain boundaries that I have with certain people, I don't necessarily have to have with others, just depending on the scope of the relationship or what I need to feel emotionally safe. Yeah. Also, I actually forgot to ask, what's your name? Thanks to get out. Sarah. Oh, okay. So like on the other hand, what are like kind of things that are maybe like red flags or things that if you see in a relationship, like you want to go along?
Jealousy, control, confusion. Anytime I feel like I'm in a cycle with someone, like sometimes if they haven't done their work, right? Like you can just tell they've been through things with the way they projected or the way they see you sometimes. That's sometimes it's harder to twisting. Like I feel like the confusion's the biggest thing, like where it's like I don't think I said it like that, or like gaslighting or any type of those.
Yeah. Which I mean that goes back into the emotional safety, right? Those things are happening.
Hot, cold, a lot of just up and down, or things don't feel consistent. It's just like fight or flight, lots of tension, a lot of. I just experienced a lot of that in my 20s.
Yeah, I feel like that's a ripe time.
Yeah.
Or yeah, everyone, especially like young, like early 20s, everyone's like out on their own, experimenting, and lots of learning happen.
Because I truly believe like fight or flight, like those butterflies were love. I got that wired and took a lot of unwiring that healthy, safe relationships feel boring. Like it's this, there's gonna be ups and downs, but it's not this constant up and down. And I just try to see what is my last name. I go out the last name.
No, for sure. I have this like kind of spectrum that I can run. Is it is it working?
I hope so. I hope so. I'm trying to show it on here too so they can
And I can like
see it.
send slides to you if you
Yeah,
want.
and I have like what you sent me, the PDF, so I just have that. I'm like sharing that at the same time. So yeah, just talk loud, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I can.
Okay, awesome.
So I want to tell people that every relationship it exists somewhere along the spectrum. Obviously, we want to have healthy relationships where there's great communication, quality. We feel like this is someone that we can trust and fully rely upon. in practice, that is very hard to have 100% of the time. Comes to different relationships, whether that's even like friends, sometimes being demanded upon us that we're not able relationships. Those kinds of things fit into the middle sector. I like to say that as long as we're trying to make it back towards healthy, we're on the right track. Our relationships are going to ebb and flow, and sometimes we'll make it like back to healthy, and then we'll have something happen. And as long as like we're on an upward trajectory, we're on the right path. The difference between like being human, making mistakes in a relationship versus being an abusive person, two things that I like to point out. One is intentionality. Over with abusive relationships, there is an intent of wanting to cause harm. So, like, for example, communication. In a healthy relationship, great communication. It feels like we understand each other. We're able to bring things up without any feelings of being rejected or misunderstood. And unhealthy, maybe this is a relationship where occasionally we're not good at communicating, or we bottle things up, or maybe we try to communicate and we're just not like hitting the mark, or maybe this person doesn't understand us, we don't understand them, trying to figure it out. With abusive relationships, there is communication, but it is done in a harmful or direct way. The second thing that I like to point out is also patterns and responsibility. With abusive relationships, there is a pattern of someone doing something over and over and over again. And maybe we've had a conversation with them saying, hey, it makes me super uncomfortable when you do this. And maybe they apologize in the moment, but then they continue to do it. With people that are trying to be better, there's an aspect of taking responsibility. So if someone's not taking responsibility and actually changing their actions, it doesn't matter what they're saying. If that's continuing to be a pattern, we're now heading towards abusive behaviors. I also want to help us understand sometimes there might be things that are like, oh, I don't know if this counts as abuse or not, but it really hurt me. Whether or not it's abusive or an unhealthy pattern that someone's trying to work on, whatever kind of hurt it does to us, that doesn't that still matters, right? If hurt is done, it's done. Whether or not it fits in abusive or unhealthy characteristics. And so it's important that we know how to communicate those things, and if we're not able to, that can be a time to reevaluate a relationship. But these are a couple of different markers of what unhealthy love might look like. So that mid sector. So this doesn't necessarily mean that it's a toxic or controlling relationship if we see these things happening. However, if they do start to become that pattern, right, that's maybe where we should have some awareness going. Whether that's in friendships, relationships with our family, any type of loved ones. And some of these you actually mentioned as being red flags, such as intensity. This is when a relationship goes from 0 to 100 to super difficult. Either someone trying to push another person to hit certain milestones in the relationship before they feel ready, or physically or emotionally. Could also be a relationship where someone tries to gain a lot of trust early on, maybe sharing very intimate details of trauma or their past very early on in the relationship. There is a model that I like to bring up called the relationship attachment model. Have you ever read? Yes, How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk. I love that book. But I feel like that model explains in healthy and comfortable pace really well, in that in order to be able to trust someone, we've got to know them this much. And if we want to rely on them, there has to be so much trust. And the only way for us to develop that kind of trust is with time. That's not something that can ever be rushed. And so in a healthy relationship, both people should feel like we're moving at a comfortable pace. and not someone feeling like they're getting dragged along or pushed to hit those timelines before they feel ready. Another thing that can sometimes go hand in hand with intensity is volatility. I like to compare this to an emotional roller coaster where we've got like super high highs and super lows, and it feels like we're moving constantly between. Where the person that we got on Monday, we're not sure if that's going to be the person that would get on Wednesday when they come in. We get a lot of whiplash, or it might feel like we're walking on eggshells, maybe because they are someone who's explosive to very small things. Now, my example with this is I'm someone who can't handle comfort very well. I have found out through experience I get angry really easily. And just through experience and through like conversations with friends, I realized that if I don't check in on my own hunger, making sure that I can snack or whatever it may be, I can be considered a volatile person. Because when I'm hungry, I find like the smallest inconveniences to be very big. And when it comes to my relationships, I want to be, I want to be a healthy partner. I want to be a healthy friend. And so it's important that we focus on like what kind of stressors might be in our life and find ways that we can mitigate the stress. Because whatever the stressor may be, those kinds of things can make us less patient or just easier to fall into like our emotions and acting on them. So
So personal needs, right? That's like sleep,
yeah,
like things that you need to have enough in you, what you think.
yeah, for sure. When it comes to any like stressors that are in your life, what kinds of things do you like to do to help de-stress, or maybe just things that bring you joy?
I do circus, so I every night I do a lot of self-care. So I have a really fun hobby on the physical one. I love doing breath work, I love doing meditations, I go to therapy. So there's a lot. I mean, I hit different categories of my overall function and try to be very consistent with it. Try to do it self-care daily, right? So
Yeah, I love that.
I have to. I'm a trauma therapist. If I don't, it's I'm not be able to do
Yeah,
it.
It's a journey.
I've just really established that. I have a big habit. I always say I live my life big outside of work because
yeah.
I invest a lot of myself just so I can do my work and be there for me.
Anything that you like to do to make your time?
Just like things that make you laugh. Just enjoy it. Being around my pets or my family and friends. It's so important. Sometimes like just creative stuff. It's art or whatever. Like,
I love the creative outlets. I'm someone that's I love the outdoors, which I'm really cold. So finding creative ways to be out.
yeah, yeah, it's true. Nature is
Yeah. Um, so the next one, extreme jealousy. When it comes to any type of emotions, I like to say there's no good or bad ones. There's comfortable emotions, right? Like happiness, joy, excitement. And then there's uncomfortable ones. And jealousy definitely counts as an uncomfortable emotion. And while we can't control the feelings that we feel, we do have control over how we feel them, right? And so extreme jealousy is when jealousy becomes so intense, it starts to influence the way that people treat those around them. So this could be seen through different types of isolation tactics, whether it's in a dating relationship, someone saying, I don't feel comfortable with you talking to other guys or being friends with guys, or vice versa, being friends with girls, or saying, your family just doesn't understand you, like they don't like me, they never invite me to do things, and even when I'm there, like they don't talk to me. Why do we even count? Different like comments like that can be isolating factors later down the road, especially if it becomes a pattern where someone feels like they have to choose between friends and family and a relationship. In healthy relationships, we deserve to be connected to all kinds of people that we want to, whether that's members of our family, friends, coworkers, because these different connections bring value to our life and significance. And so it's important that we, even when we are in relationships, whether it's a new one or an established relationship years down the road, we're still continuing to put effort into our relationships. Extreme jealousy can also be seen through belittling, the way that people talk or act in a way to make someone feel smaller. Belittling is all about someone kind of chipping away at another person's confidence in order to make themselves feel better, whether that's what they say to them, saying things behind their back, or this could also be someone making us feel like our accomplishments aren't a big deal. Things that we're excited about that we've been working on. Even if it's small, in a healthy relationship, we should have people that are going to get excited with us. Maybe we go on a rant about something that we love and it's not something they connect with. But in a healthy relationship, because that person cares about us, they'll get excited with us just because they care about the relationship. I know for me, my partner, he's a really big tech guy. I don't understand tech that well, but he'll go on super long rants about things that are really exciting to him. And it's not exciting to me whatsoever. I love that he knows the stuff and can help me out around the house, but I always want to get excited for him because even if it's not something I find exciting, I want him to know that like I'm going to share in those like wins and like hobbies, and he does the same thing for me. So kind of any like questions for these different markers?
I mean, these are all, I love teaching patterns because even when I'm working with clients, like, let's just pay, I don't ever say, I say, let's just pay attention to that thing. Okay? So for a year, you bring up this thing all the time. Let's just watch for that, right? And it's usually hits one of these zones. Or some people are like, oh, he's just jealous. But I like the word extreme. It's like, oh, that's a human emotion to feel jealous of something, but it's the actions, it's the interplay of what that happens. I think, I mean, anytime you read a domestic violence situation or a woman or a man dies, it's like there was all of these things that happened. Like, when you truly understand a love story or how something got there, I see this all the time.
Yeah.
I see even with my clients, I'm like, yep, and they'll start that like, like tell me at the beginning of it. Oh, it's and then I got that, or as soon as we got married, or as soon as we had a baby, or like, yeah,
it's so intriguing talking about these things with junior high and high schoolers too, because a lot of these markers are like romanticized within movies.
Yeah,
and for individuals at a young age when it's like first relationship, it's new and it's exciting. And if all you've known about relationships up to this point are from the things that you watch online and social media, there's a lot of communication of like they're supposed to be like grandiose and it's like all this back and forth, but will they, won't they? And like you said, healthy relationships. I think it's my computer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. But healthy relationships, like they might be considered boring per standard of Hollywood, but that's more a factor of it's reliable and you can predict what's going to happen. I tell people when it comes to volatility, healthy relationships, you should be able to predict what your partner is going to do or what they're going to how they're going to react to things you would say about like 90% of the
It's not
time.
these major extremes of things, reactions.
Yeah. And I always find it interesting too, like people who have either like been through generational trauma or lots of unhealthy relationships, when they get into an unhealthy one, the body like does not know how to handle it because it's so foreign.
Yeah,
It's intriguing.
even excessive communication. I see a lot of young people like they're out with their friends, their boyfriend calls 3 or 4 times, right? It's this excessive like
control.
or manipulation. I'm gonna kill myself. Oh, I see. That's like a big one that I'm like,
Yeah.
how do I teach people how to not get into like threats of suicide, because that also keeps me.
Yeah.
I think are going to be.
Yeah.
That's a huge one that like we see as well. Yeah, because like when it comes to these, obviously lots of different ways that abuse can be seen, whether that's the attempt or threat, abuse, or actually they call them. And yeah, when we talk to especially like young adults and youth, when someone makes a threat of like, hey, if you break up with me, I'm gonna kill myself. That's no longer a factor of mental health. Obviously, let's get people connected to resources. But when someone's making that kind of
Using
threat,
that to manipulate.
it's a manipulation tactic. It's no longer kind of mental health. So I always say like, yes, give them connected to resources.
Yeah.
Let them know
I take it serious,
but then
yeah.
never a reason to stay in a relationship because that's a control factor.
Yeah.
But the three things I also like to point out with abuse is that it's to try and control someone else's actions, feelings, or thoughts. And abuse is always a choice. I feel like a lot of times when we get people come in that have been in domestic violence situations, their abuser will say something like, "Oh, like you made me do this. If you hadn't like gone out with your friends, this wouldn't have happened. This is on you." And that's not the case, right? When it comes to dealing with emotions, we're not responsible for other people's emotions or actions. And so whether it's trying to control someone else's actions, like where they go, what they do, or their feelings about other people, themselves, or even thoughts, like when it comes to gaslighting. These are all different ways that people try to control another person in a relationship. I don't know why my other little images aren't showing up. There's two more, but we're going to talk about like three different types of abuse. We'll start with physical and sexual, but these are just a couple of different examples of what physical abuse might look like. And earlier I talked about how like defining abuse has to do with intentions and responsibility and patterns. The only thing that does not fit within that type of pattern that happens when abuse and needs to be treated as such. The other thing on here that I like to point out to people too is like with throwing things, obviously throwing something at another person counts as physical abuse. But this could also be someone just throwing something across the room, not necessarily hitting a person, because not only do people deserve to feel safe in their body, but also their environment. So whether that's throwing things, punching a wall, or just like driving erratically. These are all different like examples of abuse that I see a lot.
It's scary.
Road rage, like she's kind of.
Yeah, or you're in the car with them, they're mad at you, it's
So they
even
start
driving. Really scary.
Yeah,
And you're in the car. No.
I
There's no
feel
reasoning, there's no,
No.
I'm feeling scared, can you please stop? And it's just this complete
They don't
just
know.
for.
Yeah.
It's scary.
yeah, especially that's another one with a lot of like teenagers and young adults. We see because especially like someone who hasn't had their license a lot isn't thinking rationally about the consequences if they get in an accident.
Yeah, they're just in that part of their brain.
Yeah, I don't know why my energy is showing up, but here's a couple of different examples I can control for emotional control. Obviously, like any type of belittle actions, guilt tripping, gaslighting is one. I also like to talk about giving a silent treatment because I feel like this is something that happens a lot in relationships and people don't know how to communicate well. I feel super hurt, and the only way that I can like communicate that to you and make sure that you understand this hurt is that if I disagree, then you'll understand how much it hurts. Which is not obviously you can't have. And so knowing how to have conversations when either like maybe we're shutting down or also like if we need personal space, the difference being whether there's communication or hands.
see this a lot with hanging up. Like I have some couples who, when they're mad, they'll just hang up on them. Like just hang up, block them for the day. And I'm like, when you have kids, when you have to communicate, and someone needs to be able, like, it's this kind of really, it's just not a safe behavior. And so, even though you're mad, it's like still, unless truly the other person's on the phone and like you're reading, it's a
Right.
talk, but just like a normal conversation, whether doesn't need to be that escalation, it's that you know,
Yeah.
it's like
Extreme
it's the extreme
response.
right. If I didn't say something perfectly or you didn't do what I wanted, I like that on me. Walking, seeing a lot of that married people right now, so okay.
Trends. It's trends.
I feel like, yeah, just like the drastic switch in religion, like there was no way not to make this jump basically.
And then not giving a person a chance to be able to repair or to like, and it's this block, and it's like the other person's like, do I call them? Do I not? How do I get like? We got to figure out dinner for the kids, but I block for the day, and they'll, you know what I'm saying? Like it just happens 5 times a week.
Wow.
Because they can't manage themselves then. So,
Yeah. We sometimes go into like the halfway house or jail, and that's a place where they never learn how to regulate emotions and like teach them that regulation is super important because that's usually the start of like and music behavior was an emotion that went to the extreme and something not know how to healthily deal with that emotion. Okay, so the last category is technological. So with changes in AI and that's been developing. Honestly, I should add to this list, but something that we're like seeing a lot of even statewide is AI generated revenge porn, where someone can take
Their
fully
image
full
and make
picture
it
of someone just from online and be able to generate like new
AI.
and then it's used as blackmail. Especially like seeing that a lot in this
in Zeus. Are you adolescents?
yeah. I don't know if we specifically have seen it, but I've been
Yeah,
hearing from other
but-
organizations in Utah that it's becoming a thing that's affecting a lot of suicide rates with kids too because they don't know how to handle. They're like,
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
this
know how-
image, it's not me that's out there.
but everyone's gonna
shaming
think it's me. Yeah. So yeah, it's been super interesting. Yeah.
locations tracking is interesting because there's like a lot of family systems that normalize tracking and knowing where everyone is all the time. And also people with OCD can sometimes be very extreme with tracking. Like they're constantly
That's
watching
true.
their partner's
Comes
location.
with an obsession.
Where are they? Where, you know, and there's a balance there, but it's like
Yeah.
like me and my fiance, I have never tracked his location in 6 years. We just don't. All we ask is, hey, just keep
Let me know.
track.
Where
Like I went somewhere and I went to some shady house to buy something. And he didn't know, and he's like, just in the future. Just let me know. Just let me know. I said, yeah. Honey, I made it this long without you, but I totally can. I'm for sure to do that. But I don't struggle with that. So, like, but then I see other people just my family, like moms turn off the location. And I'm like, oh, why are we getting so obsessive with the tracking of the location? But it is a thing. And I understand it's normal in some families, but then
Yeah. I think it's something that's also become super common with like younger generations, like mine and younger, with apps like Snapchat where everyone has each other's location. It's
Yeah.
so easy to share and people just add random people as friends and then those people have your location out there.
Yeah.
And that's become kind of it's become a normative thing and so it's important to be making sure that we think about like how well do I know this person going back to how much trust in your lives can we give based off of how well we know the person definitely applies to location tracking.
some people get hurt by when they turn off their location because they're either someone they don't, you know, it's like I see a lot of cheating and a lot of I just worked with a client today who It was, they're supposed to have plans and they were with someone else, but they turned off their location. So also not very manipulative, just turning off their location to cause. I see this also when people threaten suicide and still turn off their location. And then they'll disappear and the partners are like, I'm worried about them. And I see that too, and that's super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a complicated one, so it's a lot of nuance in it. I see it for safety, but I also see it.
Be good at just, I like the
Your
incessant. My brain like checking all the time, or is it like, oh, like if I get worried about you, then I'll maybe like look it up and do that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Just having good boundaries around it. Like it could be
Yeah.
flexible, just having good boundaries with your relation.
Yeah.
My OCD clients get their location over. I'm like, okay, until we can be healthy about it.
Right. We're just gonna go.
We just can't check the internet anymore.
Okay.
The doctor 30 million times today. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
when we learn
Yeah.
to do it, not when we're feeling anxious, not when we're
Yeah.
when we are not regulating it or using that tool to regulate, then we step off with. I try to teach that. That's important.
no, I love that. I mean, in referring to it as a tool, right? It's not going to be misused or used for good. We don't move them, but like boundaries on it to make sure that we are using it in the correct way. So these are just a couple of different barriers, common barriers that survivors of domestic violence face when it comes to getting help. On average, it takes about 7 attempts for someone to successfully leave an abusive partner, and survivors are at most risk for threats to their life when they are. Yeah, so it can be really hard to leave, whether, especially like if there has been any type of isolation, do they have a support system to fall back onto, economically, socially, emotionally? And if they do have that support system, is this going to be a system that supports and understands, or is this going to be one where there's like misunderstandings or blame, like, oh, we told you not to date this person, like, what did you expect to happen? The other thing too, like with gender stereotypes, for men that are in abusive relationships, it can be super hard to get help. One, a lot of like domestic violence and sexual assault services are marketed more towards women, even though they aren't there for men, can be a barrier, and also whether or not that male support system is one that's understanding or like stereotypical
Yeah. I was just reading an article on that men and women are almost equal for abuse, like emotional abuse and abuse that men report less abuse. It's stereotypes.
No, it's an interesting and like challenging situation. Of like the survivors that I've met, we do support basketball on Wednesdays, and we're like, have you ever tried to do a men's support group? I don't want to take away from like the space of a woman, like at these groups, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable if I come from a man, but then not enough people are brave enough to come to a group to like actually establish a male.
Yeah.
And so it makes it just like extra hard for moms to get help because you can't establish a group unless more people come forward, and they don't want to take away from like women health spaces. So these are just a couple of different signs of what healthy love should look like. If you're interested in looking more into these, and then also there's similar like 10 signs of unhealthy love, that QR code will take you to the One Love Foundation. They do a lot of super cool activities for both youth and adults, focusing on understanding what healthy love is actually supposed to be. And a lot of these are the complete opposite of those unhealthy markers we talked about, such as intensity. Opposite of that is going to be that comfortable pace. And then having like isolation versus independence. I would like to point out independence because, especially in romantic relationships, this is something that can be easily lost, even in a relationship that's not abusive or super like unhealthy. But I like to tell people that a good relationship is one where it's two people, super amazing, rocking it on their own, come together, just make life better. And while they're together, they still have these goals individually that they've had before, still working towards those goals, have these relationships outside of each other, and they can be each other's cheerleaders in those things and still be able to share mutual like passions and interests on top of that. Are there any other ones that stand out to you guys that you feel like are super important?
Fun. A lot of times when I work with people, there's just no laughter, there's no fun. They try to be silly because that is like their irritability or their anger. And so I see that they stop, there's just no dates, there's no effort, there's no fun. It's all serious or it's all really hard, it's draining. I see it mostly with marriages because I have a lot of clients that are about abusive marriages. I can't say any of my clients experience fun. That's not one that I see most often.
Yeah.
And I'm like very.
And it's important.
You guys want to? There's like they don't date, and I'm like, maybe I'll go on date. Like I know it's me. I'm like,
Fun, joy,
Yeah.
silliness.
No, I love that it's on this list because even if you have the other night, if there's no fun, that's not a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
It is.
Business.
Yeah, this is a coworker. Yeah, that one's super important. I love the healthy conflict. That one. It's like it's
we can disagree and talk about things and solve problems.
yeah. And that also healthy conflict, I feel like also go hand in hand with independence in a way of when we teach about healthy conflict, we talk about what shared power is. And in order for there to be shared power in a relationship, first have to be preserved individuality, where we can disagree and still value each other's opinions. Even if we don't agree with them, we'll be able to preserve that word. We don't have to believe the same thing 24/7. That individuality, we still value each other. When we come to a decision, it's not going to go 100% this way or this way. We're going to try and come up with something that is going to be beneficial for the relationship overall. And we'll both feel safe.
And political, I have a lot of political debates with my partner, and we're very different, right? I'm a social worker, and so I see the world very differently than he. And I was starting to freak out. So we were just getting these really passionate debates, and he sees things as business and I see them as people. And I realized that like when he didn't agree with me, it felt unsafe because I'm like, because of my family home, it wasn't safe to be different. And then when I realized that, I was like, Sarah, it's good that we are different because right, if you choose to parent, you can parent the same. Like you could have one faith, but then your kids can be completely different. I mean, and then I'm like, oh yeah, like I don't need him to yield to me. I don't need to control his thinking. Like I can be safe in my beliefs, and he can be safe. And he always reminds me, Sarah, we love each other. Like it's okay that he always ends that when I'm like, I just can't talk about ice with you, or I can't talk about we're just not seeing it the same way, and then he'll just remind me that we love each other. Hey, Sarah, it's okay that we don't see it the same way. I still love you. I still respect you. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. Like, because I would get so scared. I'm like, oh, we don't see things the same. But I'm realizing it's okay to learning how to tolerate a difference. I think is really hard. Super hard. I want him to be like, because I think I'm correct. See the world like me. And he's like, no, I see the world like this. I'm like, you're right. You're not a social worker, so you don't have to. You don't have to worry about laws and all those things. Okay, but it's like that learning how to tolerate when we're not different.
Yeah, for sure. Similar thing. Like I work in this realm like all day, every day, and my husband very much an introvert, techie guy, and so sometimes we don't see things eye to eye. but it is like something where if I am frustrated, being able to say like, oh my gosh, I can see why you feel that way. That must be super hard. Just being able to like, maybe we see it differently, but being able to empathize with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to sexual, chances are that you know in someone, unless someone who has this is not going to look, oh, now it will. So these are a couple of statistics specific to the state of Utah. 1 in 2 genderqueer individuals, 1 in 3 women feel violence in sometime in their life, with the majority of survivors under the age of 30. Um, and then this comes to sexual violence. It's actually the only crime statistic that we are so I'm sure these statistics are higher with us being so close to universities as well. BYU is just an hour away. Usually college campuses see a much higher rate in populace because you've got a big influx of individuals coming to a new state for the first time, living on their own, getting to test the boundaries with freedom, whatnot, and knowing how to do that in a safe way is super important. So, sexual assault is any unwanted sexual contact, including unwanted touching, that results from coercion, force, pressure, violence, or threats. And I like to say that the only way that we can stop assault from happening is for people to stop assaulting. And so that's where consent comes in. And so I have this fun acronym to kind of help us understand the different aspects of consent. And consent also is not inherently sexual, right? Definitely these apply to like these different aspects of apply to sex. But consent, the root definition is it's just all about asking for permission and respecting the answer that we get in all types of scenarios. So the first aspect is that consent is freely given. This means that someone, going back to that definition, someone is not influenced, forced, with pressure, or coercion to do something. They know that they can say yes or no, and there's not going to be any negative repercussions, such as threats to ending the relationship if someone's not comfortable with a certain sexual activity, or maybe with like friendships, if someone feels pressured into doing something, it's not really given if they feel like they're going to lose that friendship or be seen as less if they're not willing to like go out late at night or do certain activities they're not comfortable with. The next one is reversible. This means that like just because someone says yes at this point in time doesn't mean that they can't change their mind and say no. Levels of ability obviously change depending on the situation, scenario, time, place, with everything. I like to give the example of rock climbing. I'm a super big rock climber and I love trying food. And I had a friend that wanted to try it out for the first time. And I was super excited. And so got her all harnessed up. We go up the mountain and halfway through the climb, she freezes up and she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I thought I was gonna like this. Like it sounded super exciting in the moment every time we talk about it, but now being here in the moment, I'm not enjoying this. And so obviously as a friend, I don't want to make my friend uncomfortable, brought her back down. But the same thing goes when it comes to sexual activity or just any type of um, interactions within a relationship. People might be okay with it in one specific scenario with this thing, and another time maybe not. Because also past relationships might be an influence, or anything like with family. There's lots of different factors. This is also super important when it comes to marriages. A lot of times, people how do I say this? Sometimes people like will think like, oh, they've been married, like obviously like they're on the same page, like they're going to like have sex, like like they know each other like super well, don't need to keep asking for consent. I say that consent is a living contract that never expires. Obviously, consent is gonna look different on the first date compared to a 15-year relationship. For like me and my husband, he knows that when like I come home, I like want to kiss him. We like kiss to say hello. First date, he asked if it was okay to kiss me. We learned each other's comfortability, but even in that relationship and like years down the road, I know that if I'm ever uncomfortable, he's going to be able to tell and respect that distance, which is super important. But also in early on relationships, it's important that we're getting verbal consent because we're not as good at reading nonverbal cues as we think we are, especially with someone that we don't know as well. People will sometimes make assumptions thinking that they were reading a cue a certain way and that it was not at all the cue that someone was trying to give nonverbally. And so it's important that we are making sure that we're verbally checking in with people and not making assumptions based on what we think they're seeing. With informed, this just means that in order for something to be consensual, both people have to know everything that is involved. If something is omitted, one person knows about and the other doesn't, that is no longer a consensual interaction. Someone also cannot give consent if they are drunk, high, passed out, or asleep, and obviously minors cannot give consent to adults. That would be considered a coercive relationship. And then with enthusiastic, the way my mom likes to describe this, she's LDS, is if it isn't a heck yes, then it's a no. A lot of times we hear the phrase like no means no, which is super important. Like obviously we need to be listening to people when they say no, setting boundaries. But consent needs to go a step farther in that yes means yes. Just because someone didn't say no doesn't mean that you can assume that they're giving their consent. This is especially important when it comes to the way that people deal with uncomfortable or traumatic experiences. If there's someone that's going to go into like a freeze mode, that's going to be someone that maybe like stops talking as much, closes in on themselves, isn't good at communicating. And so an example is like I have a friend who's not super big on physical touch. Sometimes she likes and so I always want to make sure that I respect it. But I can tell that what are you asking? She arms are open, she's meeting me halfway, communicating in several different ways that this is like something she's enthusiastic about. Oh, I mean, if you want to. Now, like going back to enthusiastic, she didn't say no, right? But that enthusiasm isn't there. There is a level of uncomfortability and enthusiasm. Also, what this means is that it's not about trying to get the answer that we want. It's not about trying to get someone to do the activity that we want and like pushing until they finally say yes. It's about respecting that the answer that we get the first time. Okay, so the last one is specific. This means that just because someone says yes to one thing doesn't mean that we can assume a yes to another thing. So just because someone's down to maybe make out and spend the night at someone's house doesn't mean that they're consenting to full on intercourse. We have to be specific in the things that we are asking, especially early on in a relationship. And we're not going to know what someone's like personal rules and boundaries are unless we do ask. An example I give like with high school is like say you go out to prom and it's like a great night, you guys end up holding hands, vibes are there, doesn't mean that we can assume that they want to make out at the end of the night. We have to ask because maybe they've got a rule that they don't kiss till the third date or something like that. We're not going to know unless we ask. Any questions? Or comments?
No, I like it though. I like the acronym. To
Yeah,
understand.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and like skip this video because my computer was pretty struggles, but teen consent, great video. Um, this is just like a couple of things that boundaries are and are not. The way that I like to talk about boundaries is that it's a way to get our needs met and live within values. So I have this thing that is like a deep core need that I have. And in order to protect this need, I can set a boundary. Now, in one relationship, this boundary might work super well. In another, I have a different boundary. And maybe, a couple weeks after setting the boundary, I'm realizing it's not really working, the need's not getting met. At the end of the day, it's not the boundary necessarily that matters, but whether or not our needs are getting met. And so if the boundary is not doing its job, then it either needs to be changed or maybe strengthened up, such as if someone is not respecting that boundary. So boundaries obviously are not going to be without awkward attempts. It's something that takes practice, especially in relationships that would never set a boundary with that person. That can be super scary to do. But the more that we practice them, the better that we can get at them. And eventually it should be a no without having to feel any type of guilt. It's also important to understand that boundaries are not supposed to be inflexible rules or a way to control or harm others. I think especially nowadays with social media, boundaries have become a very clickbaity word of like, oh, you can't do that. Like I have a boundary. Like, and sometimes that can be used as a controlling factor in a relationship.
That's what the nice therapy words.
Yeah, right. And so we can't set boundaries for other people, but we can set a boundary for ourselves. And so I really like this quote. A good test of a relationship is how a person responds to the word no. Love respects no, control does not. And so I think I have a like little formula of a good like boundary formula, like ways that you can communicate it. I like to tell people that depending on the relationship, you might have to have a so for me, I don't like when people yell at me. And so especially in disagreements, I don't feel like anything productive can get done if emotions are getting out of hand. So the way that I will be validated and unheard when you yell at me in disagreements. I want to feel valued in this relationship and I want us to come to a good solution. In order to do that, I need us to have this conversation at a lower decibel. That's kind of like base boundary to push that boundary. That's when we can go the extra step of, hey, if you continue to do this, I'm either going to leave the room or you're no longer to come over to my house if you can't respect consent. And if a relationship continues to push these kinds of boundaries, that might be a time to evaluate, is this a healthy relationship and is it adding any value to my life? Because if someone can't respect my boundaries, once again, like I can't control if someone else yells, right? That's their agency. They can make that decision, but this is something that I can do to protect my needs, something that I can do to take action.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just to kind of like wrap things up too, sexual assault is never the victim's fault. These are just a couple. I like to compare these to putting a seatbelt on, right? When we get in our car, put our seatbelt on in order to be safe out on the road. However, putting our seatbelt on isn't going to prevent a car from crashing into us. So these are definitely things that we can do to try and stay safe, especially on first, second, third dates. But that doesn't mean that we are completely void of risk. And it also doesn't mean that if someone didn't do these things, that they were asking for it or that it's their fault something happened.
Mm-hmm.
In all the cases that we get when it comes to sexual assault, the only thing that is ever the same in all cases is someone either didn't respect a boundary or did not ask for consent whatsoever. And so that is never on the victim or survivor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and skip this one. This is just a couple of ways to be effective bystander. You can look up the like 5 keys, just the ways that you can mitigate conflict. When it comes to helping a friend, super important that we listen and believe their story. It can be super hard to open up to someone, going back to those barriers to getting help if someone's scared that their friends are going to judge them or aren't going to believe them. So we want to make sure that we avoid doing those things. And then we want to make sure that we refer them to resources and be patient. Like I said, with abusive situations, on average, it takes 7 attempts. Some people that might be less, and for some people, it might take more. No situation is the same. And so, as a friend, being able to have that empathy is super important, and knowing what resources we can give them to help them, and also so that we can protect help in those situations. So these are just a couple of community resources. I've got stuff for junior high and high school, and then also the universities here. With the medical forensic exam, this is an exam that someone can go to any ER in the state of Utah and receive completely for free if they have been sexually assaulted. A trained forensic nurse will do a head to toe exam, checking for any types of injuries and treating them. They'll give any medication that might be needed. And if someone goes within that 6-day window, they can also collect DNA evidence. And that evidence can be stored for up to 20 years. Someone does not have to decide in the moment if they want to submit it to be evaluated. They can put it up on a shelf for up to 20 years and it still is viable evidence. Someone also does not have to work with law enforcement in order to receive this medical exam. I might have already said this, but I will also make sure, like, it is completely. We also never want to make survivors uncomfortable, like they've already been through an experience that took away their agency. So survivors can decide what parts of the exam they do and don't want to participate in. So at the refuge, we have 2 different hotlines that are run 24/7. People can call or text whether they're a friend or a survivor or family member, whatever it may be. And we also have individual and group therapy. We have a shelter here in Utah. And then we also do community support classes. And all of these things are free to survivors. There's no qualifications. You don't have to have insurance to receive therapy. We can give therapy for up to 6 months. And also citizenship does not matter. Cool. And then these are just our community support classes are. We have them on Wednesday nights for in Spanish as well. And anyone in the community can come to these, whether that's in person at our office or over Zoom on our Instagram. We will post the Zoom link, and the morning of, we post the topic. That way, people can decide if it's a topic they feel like applies to them or that they can benefit from. And then if you or anyone you know is ever interested in volunteering, our hotlines are completely run by our volunteer advocates. And they're also the people that go into the hospital with survivors as emotional support. They fill out paperwork to make sure that that visit is free and also to help them apply for any other like crime reparations. And then we have a new survivor impact team. I don't know why this is like loading so weirdly, but this is a like new team that we're putting together where it's going to be a group of survivors. It can be people that have used our services or haven't that just live here in Utah County, and they're going to meet like once every month or 2 months. I can't remember. And it's just survivors that are going to come together, talk about the issues that are in Utah County, and are there to help give us insight on how we can better serve survivors. Because we, as much as like we love to help, the only way that we can become better is hearing from the experiences of
Mhm.
those who have gone through these issues in order to improve our services.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that's all I have.
Love it. Thank you. I love that. And maybe I'll try to share with